Hey friends, how's it going? Today I want to share with you 3 most recent books that I've read. 2 fiction and one of them is memoir. When I was writing the script for the video, I tried to piece together a common theme for these 3 books. Not necessarily that I did it just for the sake of the video, but surprisingly, they're all sort of about self-discovery, pursuing one's dream and purpose, especially when the dream and purpose is different from how the society defines success, and when people have drastically different views of you and expectations of you, when even you aren't sure if this is a path you want to take yourself. I think this is quite pertinent to the modern society, especially our younger generation. We all have moments in our lives when we feel lost, whether it's related to education or career choice, a relationship, so many things. It's so hard to break the chain of the society's expectation framework, to not follow the beaten path when you have something you feel really passionate about and want to pursue. And on another side of things, a lot of us just don't know what's the right path for us to follow. The magic thing about reading these books is not that they're trying to make decisions for you or try to give you a direct answer, but they try to simply share a story. And the power of great storytelling is that it creates the emotional relation with the audience. And when it does that, it's extremely powerful. And that's how I felt after reading each of these books. So without further ado, let's jump into the book review. The first book I read last month was The Alchemist. This is one of my all-time favorites, and in the past 4 or 5 years, I've almost read it every year. So after not been reading for a while recently, I thought I'd just start from something light that I'm more familiar with. This book tells a story about a young shepherd boy named Santiago, who one day had a wildest dream about the treasure buried under the pyramid in Egypt. Instead of just letting go of the dream, he decided to sell the herd and embark on a treasure hunting journey all the way from Spain. Now, it's easy to imagine that this journey is full of danger, and the boy went through, for example, losing all of the money to a thief, traveling across the deadly Sahara Desert on a camel's back, clan wars, multiple near-death experiences, and so on and so forth. So if until this point you're still interested, I think this book might also be a good read for you. The reason I ask this question is, despite the popularity of the book, which has more than 2 million reviews on Goodreads, it has quite a polarized sentiment. People who dislike it say it's a load of fake stories and almost feels silly. But in my humble opinion, when I was reading the book myself, I put myself in a more of a spiritual perspective, and this journey doesn't necessarily have to be reasonably perfect. It doesn't have to be logically right, since we're talking about souls, nature, and superpowers. I think the beauty of this book is that it really embodies the power of the word belief and faith. And as the quote of the book says, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. There are a number of quotes like this in the book, and it may seem somewhat profound yet metaphysical, but I think it's the reader's interpretation that makes these sort of words really shine, because we all have different perspective, past experience, and have different feelings and thoughts when reading this book. Besides the main storyline, one interesting perspective that this book mentioned over and over again is to heed the omen. Omen is the so-called messages sent from the universe used to guide someone, and it played a big role in Santiago's journey, and this happened when he was given the Urim and Thummim from the king, from when he talked to the crystal merchant, saw the battling eagle in the sky, and predicted the clan war. But outside of the story, in psychological term, this omen has a term called synchronicity, which is to describe 2 occurrences of events that appear significantly related but have no discernible causal connection, somewhat similar to deja vu. So this was also an interesting angle for me to notice, that there's a psychological perspective in the book. While reading it again this year, I also found a graphic version of it, part of which is what you're seeing in this video. So if you're interested in it, check it out yourself. The next book I read was We Were Dreamers by Simu. I think the way the majority of us got to know Simu was through from the Marvel's movie, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. But did you know that this dude was also nominated as one of the sexiest Canadians? Both in 2017 and 2018. So apparently this guy has a really charming character and somewhat good looking from, in a Western standard. But back to the Marvel movie, it was the first time that an Asian Marvel superhero came onto the stage. In the Western world was really inspiring, as Asians being an ethnicity minority and never had that representation in MCU before. But today we're not gonna stress too much about the Marvel's movie. Obviously, the movie was such a highlight of his career, but after reading the book that writes about the whole journey that led to that, it just happened that there's so much to resonate with about what he had been through as a kid from an immigration family who struggled with keeping up with the expectations of a super stereotypical East Asian family and even the society. So long story short, and this might have some mild spoiler alert, Simu was raised in a typical Chinese family by his grandparents in Harbin. He was brought to Canada at age of 4 by his parents, who were at that time pursuing advanced education. He had his bursts of energy moments when he was praised of high intelligence as a kid, but deep down he was never that drawn to the concept of being a try-hard student. As his education advanced, his relationship with his parents slowly deteriorated to a point where it's filled with disappointment from both parties, and even violence is involved, and they all thought they'd never come to terms with each other anymore. Besides all the turbulent reconciliation, he seemed to be a stage material and always enjoyed attention and praise from others in a good way. Because in the unfortunate event that he was straight out laid off from Deloitte as an accountant just less than a year, he was able to break the chain and start pursuing his dream as an actor. This was a really hard journey, as you can imagine, because ethnicity minority like Asians didn't have a lot of opportunities on TV shows in the industry. And he had to grasp every single chance to live out his acting dream, even if it means getting on the stage just for a few bucks and not even being able to make a living out of it. But eventually, with the hard work and such a charming character with that Asian family work ethics, he built up his dream and led it up to first being part of the Kim's Convenience and eventually the audition for Shang-Chi, which the memoir ends at. When I was reading the book, I wasn't looking at a particular Hollywood star at the highest point of his career. I was looking at a young man who struggled with reconciling with his parents and maintaining a healthy relationship, who felt so many times at lost at the crossroads of the career and at the romantic relationships in his life, and who through all these mental struggles and still was determined enough to put in the hard work to pursue his dream, pave the way and beat the odds. I really liked how down to earth and genuine this book is, how he opened up and being vulnerable and shared all of the early struggles as a kid from an immigrant family, all the way as a teenager in high school, and how he spent his years in college. The turning point of his career was later when he was let go from Deloitte, and it felt like the darkest moment of his life. Somehow reading between the lines, it almost felt like as if I were living out the life from the book. Not just, obviously we're all Asians in the Western country, but for how we as human beings share the same mental struggle, emotions, and conflicts of not knowing what to do with our lives and where to move forward. The other reason I really love this book is because how great of the writing it is from Simu, and you can see how readers love the writings of the book from Goodreads. And there's person teasing if there is a ghostwriter for this book. This guy can surely be funny, and it's brought me a lot of good laughs reading this one. There are also a lot of heartbroken moments, and I definitely shed tears for it, as well as so many where I found power and inspirations between the lines. So yeah, I highly recommend this book to you. Simu also narrated the audio version himself, so I've been recently listening to the audiobook version of it all over again. The last book I read recently is from the famous Nobel Prize winner in literature, Hermann Hesse. And the book's name is called Siddhartha. Siddhartha?
Siddhartha.
Siddhartha. And this is also one of the most well-known work from Hesse. This book shares a lot of commonalities with The Alchemist. Like, it's all fictional, it's about one's awakening journey to pursue their purposes and their lives, and it's combined with some extent of religious belief. This book is really short, so if you haven't read for a while like me and just want to pick up something light, I think this is a great choice. It wrote almost about Siddhartha's whole life experience about pursuing an answer and meaning to his life. So in that regard, the scope of this plot is far more broader than the one from The Alchemist. And when I finished the book, I just feel like I've lived someone's life in just few hours. This plot and the characters of the book to me is very much intricately designed. Like the two names of the main characters, Siddhartha and Gautama, is actually the first and last name of the same person, Buddha, which is more commonly known as Sakyamuni. And in the book, both of them eventually found the answer and became the Buddha, but they met in different stages in their lives. So things like these, especially what is unwritten in the book, is what I think makes this a very interesting read. I think that's the beauty of literature in general, of a fictional story, is that it leaves so much of a space for readers to have their own interpretations and imagination. In a similar spirit in the book, after Siddhartha became the Buddha, he also said that nothing can be taught in words, in teachings, and one has to experience it and find it themselves, which I tend to agree and resonate a lot with. Personally, I haven't dug too deep into the writing background of the book and the religious side of things, but I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of interesting context there. And to put into perspective, this all came from Hesse's actual travel and studying East Asia, about all of the culture and religions there. And in this book, you're gonna experience a lot of Oriental religious point of views, explore the self-knowledge in a literature way that is beautifully written and almost reads like poem. Just for sake of not spoil the story, I just wanna share two of my favorite pieces of the book. Hopefully this gets you know the language of the book better and also gets you excited to read the book yourself. The first piece is when Siddhartha leaves all of the rich and fame behind and passed out because of extreme hunger. In those moments, he had a dream. Kamala owned a small, rare singing bird in a golden cage. Of this bird he dreamed. This bird had become mute, who at other times always used to sing in the morning, and since this aroused his attention, he stepped in front of the cage and looked inside. There, the small bird was dead and lay stiff on the ground. He took it out, waited for a moment in his hand, and then threw it away, out in the street, and in the same moment, he felt terribly shocked, and his heart hurt, as if he had thrown away from himself all value and everything good by throwing out this dead bird. Starting up from this dream, he felt encompassed by a deep sadness. Worthless, so it seemed to him. Worthless and pointless was the way he had been going through life. Nothing which was alive, nothing which was in some way delicious or worth keeping he had left in his hands. Alone, he stood there and empty like a castaway on the shore. And the second piece is when Siddhartha found the answer and became the Buddha, just by listening closely and attentively to the flow of the river. In the book he read, Siddhartha made an effort to listen better. The image of his father, his own image, the image of his son merged. Kamala's image also appeared and was dispersed, and the image of Govinda, and other images, and they merged with each other, turned all into the river, had it all being the river for the goal, longing, desiring, suffering, and the river's voice sounded full of yearning, full of burning woe, full of unsatisfiable desire. Siddhartha listened. He was now nothing but a listener, completely concentrated on listening, completely empty. He felt that he had now finished learning to listen. Often before, he had heard all this. These many voices in the river, today it sounded new. Already, he could no longer tell the many voices apart. Not the happy ones from the weeping ones, not the ones of children from those of men. They all belonged together. The lamentation of yearning, and the laughter of the knowledgeable ones, the scream of rage, and the moaning of the dying ones. Everything was one. Everything was intertwined and connected, entangled 1,000 times. And everything together, all voices, all goals, all yearning, all suffering, all pleasure, all that was good and evil, all of this together was the world. All of it together was the flow of events, was the music of life. And when Siddhartha was listening attentively to the river, the sound of 1,000 voices, when he neither listened to the suffering nor the laughter, when he did not tie his soul to any particular voice and submerge himself into it, but when he heard them all, perceived the whole, the oneness, then the great sound of the 1,000 voices consisted of a single word, which was Om, the perfection. In this hour, Siddhartha stopped fighting his fate, stopped suffering. On his face flourished the cheerfulness of a knowledge, which is no longer opposed by any will, which knows perfection, which is in agreement with the flow of events, with the current of life, full of sympathy for the pain of others, full of sympathy for the pleasure of others, devoted to the flow, belonging to the oneness. Alright, that's all that I want to share today. I really do wish that you got a chance for yourself to read any of the books yourself, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This last part is only related to the book review today, but I just want to say a massive thank you to those of you who are still watching my videos, sending comments, and whether it's asking questions or just sending your regards to me via DMs or anything. There's a lot of going on that I wish to update you guys more frequently and in a more casual video, but thanks for showing care, and I never took it for granted. As always, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.